Hello, everyone. We are live again. Loving that I'm doing multiple lives again. I miss this. I'm super excited. Hopefully, you guys are doing well. Hopefully, you guys are having a great Wednesday. I know that I've been extremely busy. I've been doing so many fun projects as well as not so fun projects, but still enjoying it. So, hello, everyone that's joining. We've got quite a few people. This is awesome. Let's see. Send a request. I feel like I haven't taken a deep breath all day. Hello.
Hello.
Let's raise my screen up so that I'm not.
I know. The right
All
angle
right.
here.
Oh, I just pushed the cord down. Whoops. That's okay. I feel like I just finished talking to you.
I know. And now your hair's spiky. My hair looks no different. I
How
know,
was
it's
your
kind of a
day?
little deja vu. It was good. It was good. Nothing special, just chilling and relaxing.
I see you still have power. That's good.
I do.
Well, I
Yes.
will go ahead and let you kind of introduce yourself so that people watching know who you are, and then we could just jump right into a discussion.
Hello, everybody. My name is Stephen Ingram. Drummond and I met on Clubhouse. And gosh, I never know what to say about myself with these things because I'm doing so many things. I'm a naturopathic medical student, and I'm a yoga therapist, yoga teacher, uh, Buddhist teacher. I'm involved in all holistic healing realms. But yeah, I've been teaching and practicing yoga for over 10 years. Um, and yeah, it's yoga is a great thing. And I'm just, generally have an interest in health and wellness and how we can optimize our health and well-being, and live the best life that we can and live,
Yeah.
have a full, vitally alive life. So that's a little
Yeah,
bit of
and
me.
you also are doing something very similar to me with your platform on Instagram, which hopefully we'll be doing one of these for your platform as well. So
Yes,
if you
we
wanted to kind of
are.
mention that too.
Yeah, so I, as of yesterday, just launched something called Queer Story Time, which is really exciting. There's been a lot of energy and excitement behind it, which just happened yesterday afternoon. And I have a friend's cat that I'm watching right now. So if you catch me like looking and seeing what's going on, I apologize.
Uh,
This cute little kitty that I will show you at some point. Yes, Queer Story Time. So my intention behind Queer Story Time is telling queer stories. In the work that I do as a yoga therapist, one of the common denominators that I find is that we as queer people, however you identify, gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, whatever the case may be, is that we need there's healing and power in verbalizing and communicating our story. So that's really my intention in Queer Storytime, is to offer the space for that to happen. So yesterday, I just interviewed one of my BFFs. Her name is Trisha Carlisle, and she is the founder of Trans Etc., which is here on Instagram and TikTok. They also have a website and really focused on empowering the trans community and the non-binary community. So yeah, so I just want to have as many queer people on to tell their story and, tell their story personally, but also how their identity kind of intersects with their work life and just life in general. So it's an important thing that I've wanted to do for a while now. So I'm excited that it's happening.
yeah, and I saw that there's rooms scheduled on Clubhouse too. I saw that you and Harper have a room scheduled. I
Harper.
absolutely love Harper.
She
So the
is
fact that you are doing a
so,
room with them is awesome.
I love Harper.
I
Yes.
try to ping Harper into every single room I'm in just because every single time they speak, like I'm just like, yes. And Harper
I
also is an author, which I think is amazing.
yeah.
So,
And
and
she's a fellow Buddhist buddy. She's interested in all that stuff. So, yeah, we're going to be offering, you know what? I just talked to her today. Them, her, I think
gonna say,
they go by
um,
both
them.
pronouns. Um, but yeah, talk to them, and we are planning a room about um, the whole topic of non-binary, which is going to be on April Fool's Day, April 1st. We were kind of just having a conversation this morning that it is not, people are not fooling you when they identify as non-binary. So we just, I don't know, kind of wanted to play up on that.
That's,
Um, so yeah, that'll be at 5 p.m. Pacific on April 1st via Clubhouse.
that's awesome.
So, yeah.
Yeah,
So lots coming up.
I feel like Clubhouse has gotten to the point where it's starting to get really packed full of people, and I
Yeah.
feel like there's a lot of rooms that are just kind of opened for randomness instead of like intentional topics. So anytime there's like rooms that are opened with intention, I absolutely love being a part of it
Yes.
because I mean, I think that with my lives that I've been doing here, I intentionally have them because I want them to be like educational and eye-opening conversations. And I
Right.
absolutely love being part of those types of things. And now that I've got my own clubs on Clubhouse, I've got like tons of invites that keep coming in every week to send out. So hopefully I'm pulling people from Instagram and other platforms over to Clubhouse because I mean, as amazing as these positive talks are, like I want people to be able to jump into all the rooms that I'm experiencing because I mean, I gain so much perspective from those. And
Right.
I feel like after our conversation yesterday, like just today's conversation being around like the dating scene, what is healthy, what is
Mhm.
unhealthy, the things that are
Important topic.
working against us when it comes to LGBTQIA plus relationships
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
navigating that in a healthy way because I feel like our community has a lot of trauma. And I think within that trauma, I think that we end up hurting each other on accident,
Right.
and I feel like it's a great topic to speak on so that we can hopefully make some people more aware of the pain that they're causing and the trauma that they're going through. Because
Right.
I think it's really easy for us to sometimes think that we're the only victim of things,
Right.
and we forget that when we're hurting, we're leaving a trail of pain behind us as well.
Right. We were, and that's kind of my intention also. I mean, of course, it doesn't just only have to happen in the space that I deem queer story time, but that's one of my intentions is that, you know, there's because of the AIDS epidemic, there's been a whole generation of elders that we don't have available to us. And so we need to, so basically we need to create the space in order to have these conversations in which I mean, you and I were just talking about this yesterday. It's almost that a lot of queer people, in a way, our growth is kind of stunted, so to I would say it's delayed beyond our straight peers because we just don't have the people in our lives to facilitate conversation that is important in human development and maturity, especially as queer people. So this is a huge topic of conversation and something that I think is super important. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that also like the thing with the LGBT community is we are a very rebellious community, mainly because we had to,
Right.
because the social norm says that we should not exist or who we are is wrong or
Right.
bad.
Right.
So we've had to fight against the system and try to discover what is normal, what is acceptable. And I think that uh, I think there's a lot of shame. I think there's a lot of shaming for people on their own journeys. I think that there is spaces for everything. I think that everyone has a spot to be their unique self.
Right.
And the only problem is like communication is kind of hard. That's hard for everyone. It's not just our community.
Right.
But I think that when it comes to dating, when it comes to experimenting and trying to figure out who we are, I think that when it comes to sexual identity, all of that stuff plays a huge part in our identity that society's never taught us about, that schools
Right.
don't teach our cisgender heterosexual
Here.
people anything about us. I feel like even when we come together as a group, we all have different opinions of what things mean because we've come from so many different walks of life. And the LGBT experience, we're not born into an LGBT community. We're not born into a family that's LGBT for the most part.
Right.
So for most of our youth, we are trying to understand ourselves. I think
Right.
it's getting better since now you've
Yeah.
got platforms where you can hear people speak versus when we were younger and that
Right.
wasn't so much an option. But I think that communication is something that we really have to get better at because sometimes I think people like in the dating world and dating apps, I think we talked about this yesterday where like a lot of people are scared to say they're looking for a relationship
Right.
because they're afraid they're going to scare everyone away. Uh,
Right.
but we just have to get better at saying, this is what I'm looking for. This is what I
Right.
want. I'm just trying stuff. I don't know if I'm gay, bi curious. I don't know if I'm trans. Like all these people, they don't know. And in that
Yeah.
unknown space where they're hurting and trying to discover themselves, they pull other people into the equation
Yeah.
and we don't communicate well. And then we leave a trail of people that are hurt, and hurt people hurt people.
Period. Yeah, I really just doing my work is teaching yoga and working with people privately as like a yoga therapist. Um, I firmly believe that any hate in the world, any trauma or any experience where we struggle to communicate who we are, it's a disembodiment. We are disconnected from our heart and our lived experience because we have had trauma, because we embody trauma. And we have to, one of the most powerful things about yoga for me is that it allows you to tune into your body in a non-judgmental way and say, okay, what am I feeling right now? And really, one of the things that I say is you got to feel it to heal it. And like, there's so many people walking around not feeling their emotions because they've never been taught how to feel their emotions. And so, just teaching people how to breathe properly and like, where do you feel your breath in your body? That is so freaking important, um, in order to begin kind of peeling away those layers of the onion. And this is a continual, the thing with healing, so to speak, is that it's a continual journey. Am I fully healed? Are you fully healed? Like, no, we're not, but we've done a shit ton of work on ourselves,
Yeah.
in order to be in a place where we can have healthy relationships, I would say, in order to be able to articulate what we want, which is really key. And so it's really important that people be given tools, practical tools that they can practice in their daily lives, whether it's journaling, like getting your thoughts out on paper, or yoga for me is amazing. I think everybody should do yoga. And if you haven't, talk to me, please. Because we all need tools in our lives to process through this stuff. I would highly recommend that people go to therapy. Find a therapist, find an LGBT friendly therapist. Because if you are not working on yourself, as Drummond just said, you are going to, in yoga, there's this word samsara, which means cycles of suffering. And so if you're not healing it, you're passing it on. And that is not how we have healthy relationships. And this isn't just for us LGBT people, this is for all humans, but it's compacted because of the culture that we live in. Yeah, I hope that's making sense.
Yeah. I think that a lot of people, because myself included, I there was a time where I felt like I was pretty like steady and pretty like I had a good foundation below me, and I was just like, you know what, I've healed, I'm good. But it wasn't until I read the book The Velvet Rage where
Yes.
it really talked about the social norms that LGBT people, specifically that book is based around gay men,
Right.
but it spoke about like the social norms that are ingrained in our heads, that we try to adapt our identities around to feel accepted or feel understood or have an understanding of ourselves. And when I read that book, it just blew my mind of how much of my identity was wrapped around, twisted, and manipulated to fit
Narrative.
into society instead of being me and being authentic and loving every part of me instead
Uh,
of loving what society told me I could and manipulating the rest. And
yeah.
I feel like in when it comes to like different cultures, when it comes to being part of different minority groups, I feel like the further down the minority chain you fall, like the more um, society is telling you that you shouldn't love yourself for
Right.
this and this and this and this. And that creates a mindset that
I agree.
sometimes we become so numb to the fact that it's a horrible, painful mindset that we just accept that into our life as this is what life is.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's so important to, because those things later come up as you lashing out at someone and you really don't know the reason you've done it because it's such a deep rooted triggered thing that you don't fully understand that that's the root of it. You think it's because this person is eating their food loudly or this person isn't like responding to your text messages as quickly as you think they should.
Right.
And it's the insecurity that's built way down deep inside of you that's the root cause of the anger, the fear, all of that stuff. And it's so important to heal that. And I think too
Right.
many people, instead of healing it, they try to numb it, whether it's drugs and alcohol, whether it's sex, whether it's posting stuff online to get temporary like adrenaline from getting
Right.
hundreds of likes on a picture.
Get that
Like
dopamine hit.
it's so dangerous because instead of healing, which I've watched people, and it's interesting because I moved back here to Virginia, and I couldn't put my finger on why I felt like the gay community here was so different than the communities when I lived in bigger cities. And after I really started evaluating it, because I've been here for a couple years now, I realized that there's a level of shame because in rural areas, if you don't live in places that are accepting of your LGBT status, you develop a shame of yourself and you accept that there's something wrong with you. And you're just like, you know what? I'm going to live this wrong life
Right.
because
Right.
this wrong life brings me sinful pleasures. And
Mhm.
you just have this terrible mindset of who you are. You hate yourself, but you're living in that hate. And I was just like blown away when I realized that because now when I speak to people, I can hear it in the verbiage that they use. I'm just like, wow, this person like literally hates the fact that they're gay. And this is horrible. And
Yeah.
that has to be healed. It's important because otherwise you're going to hurt people that you really care about and you won't understand why you're doing it and you'll hurt people without even wanting to do it. And in that process, you're also hurt. So you can't even care that you've hurt them or understand what you've hurt them with. And it's such a dangerous cycle to fall into.
It is, and that's why we are holistic beings, and so, I think especially among gay men, um, you know, I'm not saying that I'm making a generalization. I'm not saying this is all gay men, but there's a hyper focus on our physical bodies. But at what expense are you, spending hours in the gym with, compare that to, actually sitting down and dealing with what you're dealing with. Like, are you doing that at the expense of actually feeling what you're feeling? Are you doing, avoidance behaviors? To sit down and look at that, that's difficult work. And I think like the only way that we can begin to change this is by having conversations about it. Like that conversation that we're having right now is super important, because otherwise, I mean, we talked about this yesterday, but even if people are like scoffing at what we're saying right now, it's planting a seed to maybe get people to reflect and say, okay, what behaviors are not serving me? And then if they're not serving me, they're likely not serving others either. So yeah, how can we, and this is, I brought up the fact that we're holistic beings is because there's more to us than our physical looks. I would 100% impress on people that if you don't have a spiritual practice, no matter what that looks like, I don't care if you're Christian or Buddhist or atheist, find some sense of connection, whether that's going out in nature, because it's in that sense of connection that we begin to become embodied. And that embodiment, that living in our truth, is so important to us having healthy, long-lasting relationships, no matter if that means you're monogamous or non-monogamous or whatever your relationship structure, that doesn't matter. It's that we all as human beings deserve to be in healthy, loving relationships. Every single one of us deserves that. And so how can we practice in daily life things that are going to serve us in the future and serve our relationships? So yeah, I recommend, if you don't have a spiritual practice, find something that you connect to on the daily basis. Go see a therapist, go see an acupuncturist, go see, I don't know, go see holistic minded people so that you can find meaning in your life and reconnect to your inner truth. I know for me, for the longest time, one of my lights just went out. The battery just died because I was using it yesterday, but we got still one of them so far. So, I lost my train of thought. Oh, I know what I was going to say. Yeah, so for me, growing up, my dad is a Methodist minister, so I had the whole like growing up as a pastor's kid issue to work through, and then my sexuality to work through. And then I remember, when I started, figuring out my sexual identity and, figuring out the whole gay thing, there was the issue, okay, the church expects me to be this way, the gay community expects me to be this way, and in the middle, I'm caught. And it's like, well, who am I? And there's so much pressure on us to, be pulled in one direction or the other. And that's why we have to tune into ourselves and breathe and connect in whatever way feels authentic to us, so that we can begin healing these narratives in our mind and these behaviors that are no longer serving ourselves or people in our lives or potential partners in our lives. So,
and I mean, I also think that when it comes to, so you were talking about like the gay community versus the Christian community kind of pulling, like we also have the grand scheme of social structure,
right.
That is like what is normal, and that itself is crushing the whole community because it's still designed to say that we are not correct. And the thing that I've realized is a lot of people are attacking people. We're attacking other people instead of the structures that have formed the stereotypes that exist. And yes, there are people who enforce those stereotypes within those structures, but I think it's important for us to realize that we have to change the norm. We have to,
The system.
in every way possible, in every position that we have to make sure that we're doing the work to change that system. Because we were talking yesterday about when it comes to like the trans experience, like how does someone know that when it comes to a young child saying, I think that I was born in the wrong body, how do we differentiate that child's feelings on the inside versus society saying girls play with dolls, boys play with trucks? Because I mean, society confuses us all. I mean, we're talking about, well, people tell me that this is the way gay people are supposed to be. I don't identify with any of those norms. Does that mean I'm not gay? And you shouldn't doubt. So I think that normalizing, like removing all of those types of stereotypes, because stereotypes are so painful and hurtful for everyone. And when you think about the things that the gay community imposes and what is gay culture, what is the trans experience, the more you communicate with people, you realize that it's all different. No one's story is exactly the same. And we have to normalize the fact that different is good.
Right.
We have to normalize that every experience is going to be different and realize that,
Okay.
I mean, when I go out and seek information, I don't seek one book to confirm my thoughts and then that book becomes my Bible. I read that book, pick the pieces out that make sense, that tie into the reality that I live in and it makes sense in, and then read other books and tie all of it together to make sense in my world, in my reality, because
Right.
I think it's extremely painful for our community. I mean, our community is so full of hatred and pain, and that also, you see it in dating profiles, you see it in the dating apps, where people start listing off all the people that they don't want to be with, which is then creating a space where people feel like who they are is now lesser than because it's undesirable, which people need to realize how painful that is. People
Right.
need to ask themselves, why am I putting this on my profile? Because those are stereotypes that are making you feel like you can write off an entire section of a community based upon your beliefs of a stereotype.
Right. Yeah, and there's this I just thinking back to what you said about um, kind of the systems in play is, in this entire conversation, it's almost like when we have these conversations, like the system is this thing external to us, like but the reality, whether we're talking about racism or issues in the LGBT community or any other systemic issues, um, like I said, we talk about it as if the system is external from us. We are the system. And so, how do you change the system? We as human beings live in an ecosystem, and so how do you change the system? Is you first have to go within yourself, because you can't change anything externally if you're not changing anything internally. And that's one of the things about like Buddhist philosophy that I love, is that there's this belief that there's this huge amount of interconnection and interconnectedness between us. And it's so the whole idea is, if I work on transforming stuff within inside myself, then I'm not only transforming myself, I'm transforming the system. So this healing, this changing of the system starts with ourselves, which again is why I say we all need, to have some amount of felt connection in our lives, no matter if that's God or a deity, or you're completely atheist, or it's nature, or whatever it is. we all need that space and time in our daily lives to reconnect, because otherwise we're all just operating on this stress level, and our nervous system is, just ready to scream at somebody, and that's not helpful. So that we have to be thinking about these things daily. We have to be practicing these things daily.
That question that just popped up is
I'm
actually
reading.
something. It was actually something that you and I talked about yesterday.
Okay, let's talk about this. So let's just read it. Just a curious question and an honest one too. I'm specifically attracted to Hispanic men and not normally others. That seems more of a sexual preference and not necessarily hate against others. Where do you draw the line on hate and personal preference? Okay, so I will tell you, I know that Drummond has thoughts on this. I was talking with another white gay male recently about this, a younger guy. And okay, first we need to say that we want to, oh my God, my friend Zoe's on here. Hi, Zoe. How are you? First, we want to see things dualistically and separate ourselves, and rather than acknowledging the nuance and fluidity in complex conversations. So I want to get that out front right from the get-go. What I told my friend is that and this is the self-reflection piece, this is the healing part that we all have to do, is that you need to look at how your sexual preferences, or you need to look at the fact that, are the certain biases that you have towards other people, other races, is that influencing your sexual preferences? And there's no straight answer to that. That you have to do the work deep within yourself to say, okay, am I viewing a certain set of people, whether it's a white person, a non-Hispanic person? I think you said you're attracted to Hispanic men. Are you viewing non-Hispanic people in a certain way that is influencing your attraction to them? That's some deep work and reflection right there. And I can't give you a straight answer, but that's something that's going to be constantly changing and evolving. Now, what Drummond brought up yesterday was a great point, is that, our society has standards of what, quote unquote, is considered sexy. And I'm thinking of the actor that died recently, a black man who was in, what was the movie? I shouldn't be talking about things I can't think of on the spot.
The Black Panther?
Black Panther. Our white supremacist culture may not have deemed that man attractive, but the moment that there is exposure to somebody, on a massive scale in Hollywood, then people's perceptions and attractions begin to change, I would say. So there's a complex cacophony of factors affecting this situation. But what Drummond was pointing to earlier is that I don't know if this happens with lesbians. We're two gay dudes. Like, I don't know the lesbian experience, or any other for that matter. But what we were talking about yesterday, and he pointed it out a few minutes ago, is that, you see no fats, no femmes, no Asians. And that is so harmful. That is so harmful. I just, even saying those words out loud makes my heart sink into my stomach. And so we have, when you say that, or in this example of you not being attracted to anybody who's not Hispanic, and I'm not saying you're putting, I'm not attracted to black or femme or Asian on your profile. I'm not suggesting that, but you are placing other human beings in a spot where they are subhuman, where they are not good enough to be with you. And that is not how we should be treating one another. So it's a lot of self-work to be able to get to that answer, and there's no concrete answer to that. Drummond, what do you have to say?
I mean, I personally think that preference is something that is, I mean, we all have preferences. There are tons of different people out there that we all individually find attractive in different ways. Like some person might find one person very attractive and the person sitting next to him just doesn't find them attractive. And that's okay. But you do, like you said, do you really want to dig down deep and ask yourself why? And also, I've learned not to write anyone off. There's a lot of things that make someone attractive. For me personally, like someone who really is just loves themselves, loves what they're doing. Like when I can hear compassion and passion in someone's voice, like it's almost like this like light comes around them, and it doesn't matter if they look like anyone I've ever dated before. They just became this like new attractive being to me. And I think that there are things that happen in our life, maybe trauma from our past, maybe the media feeding us images of this is what bad people look like, this is what sexy looks like, this is what beautiful looks like. And when you start doing all of that, like it can manipulate your view of what is considered attractive.
Right.
But you want to make sure, like you were saying, like your profiles do not need to put anyone else out. If you are only attracted to Hispanic people, then swipe right on Hispanic people and swipe left on people you don't find attractive. You don't need to negatively say anything, because anytime you say not this type of person, you're instantly like assuming that everyone in that group will never ever pass any type of standard that you have.
Exactly.
And I think that that's closing yourself off from experiencing so many new things. And I think that it's important to keep your mind as open as possible. But I mean, physical attraction is important in a relationship.
Right.
You do want to be attracted to them.
Yeah.
But I definitely think it's self-reflection and understanding why you have those attractions to people. Because I mean, even within like the minority groups, society has trained your brain, because magazines are like the top 10 sexiest people of the world. And you look at it and you're like, these people don't look like me. And you're like, okay, well then this must be what attractive is. This is what sexy is. And then your brain is also being manipulated into believing that, whether it's tearing your own race down in your head or thinking that way. But like, we have to really pull it apart and once again change what's normal. Like, it is our job as citizens of this structure to change what is normal, and it's got to be done on a regular basis. Anytime like you see it happening, it has to be combated and changed. And that's not easy, but it's the work that has to be done. And unfortunately, like you and I were talking about, when it comes to the gay community, there are people, and we're included in that group of people, that sit comfortably at the top because of our skin color, and we allow things to happen within our own community that we say we fight for equality for. But there is still that structure that makes it really not so great for some people and cushioning for other people. And I think that it's got to be intentional. Everyone's got to do it. You've got to put yourself in the uncomfortable positions to make those changes. And I saw a really long comment. Were you reading that one?
Yeah, I was. Yeah. I think I would disagree on some of the things you said, but thank you for responding. I wanted to know your opinion since you were talking about this. I do appreciate you engaging with me, even if I view things differently.
Which is allowed.
That's
Everyone's
allowed.
Everyone's allowed to think differently. Like it's
Right. Yeah, I think the ultimate thing that we need to ask ourselves here is my behavior, but before I say that, some clarification I would like to say is that I do find people all races attractive, but it's more specifically Hispanic. Yeah, and I think we need to, Drummond and I were talking about this yesterday. I don't, I mean, it's a very complex issue. There's not one solidified answer in this, but um, I think we all just need to reflect on the fact as to whether racism is influencing our sexual attractions.
yeah,
Uh, is ultimately what it comes down to, and all of us of any race, especially white people, need to, need to do that work. Um, yeah, I lost my prior thought.
yeah. I think the biggest thing that people have to realize is if this was a simple problem, it would be solved already.
It would be
This is a complex issue that exists in every like grain of society. Like it's not just uh, white people that are closed minded to things. It is, we have all been taught from the beginning of time, from people that were alive before even existed. Things were created and set in motion and are still in motion because they haven't been checked. Things aren't being changed. People are just accepting the norm because sometimes it's easier to just accept the norm than to push back and fight against things that are prejudiced against certain people. And it's just important to realize that no one person has the answers.
yeah,
It's not a simple solution. It's it's a complex, forever changing. Like we were saying yesterday, like the person I am today is going to be different than the person I am 2 weeks from now, and we constantly have to be communicating. And I think that that is where it's important is don't do things that will harm other people.
right,
I think that anything that can be said in a good and a bad way. You have
right,
to take the steps to educate yourself enough to understand perspectives other than your own, because something that might not offend the white people of the world would be very offensive to someone else. And it is your job, if you are confronted with, hey, what you just said is very offensive to the people of my community, it is your job to accept that and make the changes to not do that anymore.
right.
And I think too often people are like, well, it doesn't offend me, so you just have to get used to it. And I'm sorry, but just because your journey didn't bring you to a place to understand that person's pain doesn't mean that their pain is now
Any less
invalidated.
valid, right, right. Yeah, I mean, and that person, many persons, um, hasn't worked through their issues. Because when you begin doing work on yourself, you begin having some semblance of compassion and empathy. I would say there's no way that you can do self-healing work with being angry and harsh and being treated the way that you were treated that led to that trauma or behavior. Um, you can't heal that way. So, in you healing your own issues, you have to have some semblance of compassion and empathy towards yourselves, which then begins to be extended out onto others. Um, because everybody deserves empathy and compassion, no matter, of course, no, I mean, this shouldn't have to be said, but unfortunately it does, no matter their skin color, or what other factors may quote unquote divide us or separate us. All of that is um, artificial, but here we are.
Yeah. I
And
mean, like we were saying, uh, if you really want to get down to it, we can divide ourselves to where we're all standing alone because we
right,
all literally are different. If you want to categorize yourself down to the point where you're standing alone, fighting your own battles by yourself, we can do it. It's possible.
yeah,
But you can go into the world looking for ways to unify yourself and be
Mhm.
one with the people around you and show love and compassion, or you can go into the world and find ways to divide yourself. I
Right.
think our differences make the community strong. Um, it's within the similarities that we can find ways to build a community, but it's within the differences of that community that bring the strength out. Because when a community is faced with a problem, if you've got a lot of unique, different minds, you're going to have a lot of unique, different solutions that will
Right.
solve different problems. And everyone can contribute equally when it comes to those types of things. Maybe a certain instance or a problem, one person's expertise will be a little bit more important in that moment, but as a
Yeah.
whole, the world needs everyone's unique experiences to go continue moving forward.
Right. Right. Yeah. Just I was looking at some of the comments here. I think it's interesting how in gay culture it is normalized to state what groups of people you don't like. This really doesn't apply in other dating circles. Yeah, this is why it needs to be talked about. Um, which is, I just, I, yeah, I don't see this.
To jump into the that kind of topic, like when it comes to like dating apps are built to like divide. I mean, they literally give you sections where you can categorize yourself by
Right.
tons of different things. And when it comes to the dating apps in the gay world, they give you so much power to divide yourself and make yourself this unique flower that exists. Uh, but dating apps aren't built to help you get off of the dating apps.
Mm,
They are built to be addictive. They want you to keep swiping. They don't want you to find someone.
right.
That's like when you look at how long people spend swiping versus how long they spend communicating with the
Communicate.
people that they've already matched with. Most people will be sitting there swiping, and it's just like this like chemical that's released in your brain when you match with someone or you're swiping to
Dopamine.
find people instead of like actually looking for true connections. And then when it comes to dating, when you go out on dates, dating apps have created a space in your head where you have so many options that you seek out people's faults to mark them off the list of potential people you could date instead of sitting there spending time getting to know them as a person, learning the depths of their being instead of trying to find anything shallow to mark them off the list. Like,
Right.
I can't tell you how many dates I've been on where I feel like I'm on an interview for like a job, and they're like, how do you feel about abortion? How about this? Uh, does your family vote for this person? And it's like, why is any of this important right now? Because you don't know anything about me currently, and the
Right.
questions that you're asking, you're not like asking anything further than the first answer. You're just like moving on to your next question.
Right.
And I think that the ultimate access, I mean, I had someone that I was going on dates with who ended things with me because he had swiped right on someone that lived across the United States and they had been talking, and he didn't think it was fair to lead me on when he's talking to someone in another state. 3 years down the road, he still lives here in Virginia. They never ended up talking, but I got thrown away. They didn't take the chance of getting to know me any deeper because they had that option out in Colorado. And it's just gotten to the point where we have so many options that we don't take the time to try to get to know
Right.
anyone past a very, very shallow level.
And that's disconnection. That's because of self disconnection. Um, so I'm going to talk a little bit of science. I'm not going to go into it in too
For
much
it.
detail.
I love
Um,
science.
I mean, yeah, I'm a medical student, so I have to talk a little science. Um, our nervous system, quite literally down to, our genetic anatomy, so to speak, um, is designed for social interaction. And I'm not going to go into it more than that, but that means that we as human beings are social creatures. And when a trauma happens that is basically the antithesis of safety, when our nervous system alerts us, or when we experience something that's so overwhelming to our nervous system, that literally embeds in our nervous system trauma. So it's not just in our mind, it's in our physical being. And so we go from living in a space of safety to living in a space of disconnect. And that is what creates the conditions for this disconnect in the dating world. And I know that's like some maybe heavy stuff, but that's the reality of this. And that's why I keep impressing on people that you have to work on your own issues. Otherwise, you're going to be passing them on. And that serves nobody. So how can you create authentic connection? If there's anything out of this conversation that I would not force on you, but like impress upon you, and I think Drummond would too, is how can you create authentic connections? Like, how can you feel someone else's heart, like beyond their fit? Of course, there are sexual features that we may be attracted to. And that's okay. That's part of the human experience. But we need to go beyond that. And we need to honor one another and like connect on a level that doesn't harm one another. And that's hard work. But it needs to happen is what it comes down to. And that starts with you. So, yes, please.
I mean, on the live that I did the other day, we were talking about how she left her home because her family was just really oppressive of her as a person. And then she was talking about how when she healed herself, her vibrations were so positive that the people around her also, like, it healed her relationship with her parents because she loved herself and she was giving off positive vibrations. So even when negativity came her way, she was in such a positive self-love space that it didn't impact her. So therefore, that energy granted other people a space to also do the same thing.
Right.
Because if you're in pain, you can't help other people heal. Like if you haven't started a healing process, like as much as you would like to help people, like it's the blind leading the blind, because triggers happen, like we were saying earlier. So like if you're still in a pain spot where you haven't healed a pain, you can try to help, but I guarantee you something will trigger you to where you will undo all the help that you've done, because you will end up lashing out or doing something or abandoning someone because you have to retreat back to your space. And I've kind of learned that I have to feel myself, like I have to ask myself, do I have enough energy for a conversation about someone else's pain, someone else's experience that is not my own, a space where I am the person that holds the oppressor title because of my maleness, my whiteness. Do I have enough positive energy, and am I in the right healing spot to be able to put something good into the world? And if the answer is no, if I haven't healed, I have to say, I'm sorry, I can't, because I would rather say I can't and continue to heal so later I can, than to go into that space and destroy everything that has been built.
Right. Yeah, I think we froze for a second, but yeah, and what I wanted an additional sciencey layer to this neuroscience is that so there's this saying that I love because it just points to the fact that we are our habits. There's this saying called that neuroscientists use and the saying is, what fires together wires together. So if you, and it's very simplified, but there is truth in it. If you continue these harmful behaviors in your daily life, you are literally creating stronger connections in those neural networks, which continue to exacerbate that behavior. And when we do healing work, there's like so much evidence for like mindfulness and meditation and all of that, about how those type of practices, breath practice, yoga, tai chi, whatever it is, can begin creating new neural networks, healthy, I would say, neural networks that serve not only ourselves but others. Like, this is real science. This isn't hippie voodoo science. This is like, there's real evidence behind this. So the other thing is like thinking about, how are my behaviors affecting others? Like, that should just be baseline for any human being. And are my behaviors harming others? And if they are harming others, how does that feel to you? How does that sit with you? It shouldn't feel good. And if it does, then you might want to do some self-reflection. Because, as I just said, our nervous system is wired for social connection, not disconnection. Trauma is disconnection. Safety and connection is what we're all going for and what all human beings deserve. And so I say these things repeatedly just to kind of, well, maybe do a little rewiring, shall we say. But it's the truth. And it's like, we, you know, unless we have these conversations, maybe you're not aware of this. And you know what? That's fine. And it helps to kind of remind ourselves of these things. And that's why we have to do work on a daily basis, even though it may be difficult, even though, you know, it may be inconvenient at times in our lives. Healing is never a, oh, I'm healed. Like, I have no issues. I've been practicing yoga for over 10 years, and I can tell you that yoga has helped me heal a lot, but I don't by any means feel that I am healed or cured or whatever the case may be. So it's a continual lifelong journey about how can we step into our truth, and how can we connect with others in a way that is not harmful.
And it gets easier too. Like,
that's important.
It's like, it might be hard at the beginning because you are breaking the mindset that you are currently so used to.
Right.
And the more you do it, the easier it gets. That doesn't necessarily mean life is just going to turn perfect. But now, when things happen in your life that weren't meant to happen or weren't in line with your journey that you wanted to have, now you have a mindset that is built for coping with it in a healthy way versus the toxic way that you used to think. And I think that it's important to realize that the more you practice, yes, you're going to have to do it and grow it and work on it every day, but it does get easier. So when things start coming your way and when things get fast, your brain will naturally do the healthy thing because it's habit versus the habit of unhealthy things, and your brain naturally doing it in a toxic way. But I see that we have hit our 2-minute mark of down.
So, ultimate message: love yourself, love others, don't harm others, do your healing work, period.
Yes. And
anything else you'd like to add to that?
I just want to say thank you for doing this. I know that we kind of last minute planned this yesterday, but this was an amazing discussion, and I feel like it will be very beneficial for anyone that watches it. So I'm glad that we connected, and hopefully we can stay connected, and I will see you around in Clubhouse, and hopefully get to watch all of your lives that you're going to be doing here in the future. Super excited about it.
Yeah, thank you. If anybody wants to watch the Queer Storytime, head on over to my page. I'll have a bunch coming out very soon, so I would love to have you join those lives. And I'm going to host Drummond very soon. So,
perfect.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Have a good night.
All right. You too.
Bye.
Bye.